You don't have to call feelings of greed or jealousy or anger or fear bad or wrong. We can understand them as states of suffering, which they are, and whether it's ours or someone else's. And there's states that make our lives, if we are lost in them, and that's sort of the whole point. Feeling something is very different than being overcome by it, defined by it, led around by it. And that's where we have a lot of power and choice, just through being able to pay attention in a different way. I think it's kind of unjust to oneself and even cruel to say, well, I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't be afraid anymore. I should have stopped grieving long ago. I should be beyond this. I've been meditating now for like 7,000 years. Why do I still feel this? Which makes no sense, because we feel what we feel. When conditions come together for something to arise, it will arise. We can affect those conditions for sure, but we can't absolutely control them or dominate them. And our real power lies in what do we do with something when it's come up. And anger would be a really good example of that. It's a complex feeling. It's not a simple thing. We feel what we feel, and we have to allow every feeling the dignity of its presence, and recognize, okay, this is what's happening right now. Something like anger is usually very layered. And if we can be mindful of it and pay attention to it without either condemning it or ourselves, or just saying, yes, I'm going to do this vengeful thing, we learn a lot. I've seen, sitting with anger, the layers of sadness, the layers of fear. And almost always in there's like a kernel of helplessness. In Tibetan Buddhism, they say anger is what we pick up when we feel weak, because we think it's going to make us strong. And its strength is the energy. There's a kind of cutting through energy of anger, which is very needed, actually. And we know sometimes in a meeting, in a gathering, sometimes it's the angriest person in the room that is insisting that everybody looks at that problem, and everyone else is kind of studiously looking the other way, not wanting to face it. And they're saying, no, look at that. So we actually rely on that cutting through energy. But when a person is consumed by it or overcome by it, when it really becomes kind of a way of life, it's very destructive. And the Buddhist psychology talks about anger as being like a forest fire, which burns up its own support. It can destroy the host. And like a fire, it can range very wild and we might end up someplace we actually don't want to be. So the big question for us becomes, how do we harness the energy of it? That kind of cutting through possibility without getting consumed by it. Now, this is not easy, but it's actually almost like a characteristic of mindfulness that it helps us do that. To quote Gandhi, being lost in anger is like drinking poison, thinking it's going to kill the other guy. So it's not because what we're feeling is bad or injudicious. It's because out of compassion for ourselves, we decide, do I want to get dedicated to this and just keep getting overcome by it, or do I want to find another way? The other way is not dismissing it, but utilizing the energy of it.